come back from wonderful Wales, the Welsh borders. Love that country. Sensible country. Nice, good, sensible, community-minded people. Well, unfortunately, the leadership in that country is less so. And they've been busy scurrying away some sort of, I don't know, the anti-racist Wales action plan, Labour government's 2022 document, which sought to set out the right historical narrative in the country, is saying that librarians should avoid holding meetings in racist buildings. Make it stop. What on earth is a racist building? Well, Rafe Heydel-Mankoo might have a better idea than I do because he's a historian. Hi, Rafe.
Hi there. Great to be with you, Alex.
Oh, it's always great to have you on. Don't hold meetings in racist buildings. Why? What happens if librarians are sitting there discussing, I don't know, the sort of Dewey system, whatever it's called, for filing away texts? Are they going to suddenly get sort of like spores that seep out of the walls and suddenly want to, I don't know, buy a few slaves and forcibly colonise some sort of barely habited islands? Like, what's all this about?
I know. Well, I was just thinking, where's this madness going to end? Edward II met his ghastly end at Berkeley Castle. He was reputed to be homosexual, and he died by having a red-hot poker stuck up his jackson.
He's now laid to rest in Gloucester Cathedral. I know that.
Is that going to become a homophobic venue now, where people are advised not to actually allow anyone to go in there who might be, gay or queer for fear of getting the vapours?
Right, yeah. You'll be pleased to know, actually, that I spotted a news item that I sent to Mum today, because Gloucester Cathedral's having its own "we're not racist, but we're probably racist" moment, where you can go into Cathedral and now scan QR codes to find out how racist the cathedral is. Brilliant. But anyway, back to Wales. This is, what the heck is this? It's part of a £130,000 project to instruct local librarians in critical whiteness studies to deal with issues like the dominant paradigm of whiteness. Normally, the Welsh Assembly government are more interested in saying to everyone, you've got to learn Wales because that's part of our heritage. Now what they're saying is, well, instead of like trying to uphold all of the good things that the Welsh have ever made or done in history, let's just self-flagellate and spend 130 grand on doing so.
I think we have to understand that we're now living in a post-revolutionary society. We need to be clear about that. People like you and me, Talk TV, we're actually now the counter-revolutionaries. That's why we don't get exposure on mainstream television and with the legacy media. And what we're seeing, Tony Blair ushered in the revolution and is now coming of age fully in this country, particularly now, of course, with a new Labour government in power. And at its roots, this is fundamentally Marxist. It's cultural Marxism. You get different types of Marxism. You have traditional Marxism, which is all about the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. But this is about whiteness, and it's attacking whiteness, which is one of the fundamental aspects of Western civilization. Capitalism, masculinity, whiteness, straightness, post-colonial struggles are all about dismantling all of our historical achievements. And this is an attempt to really to create a topsy-turvy world in which everything that we once held dear, all of the values and the beliefs and the heroes and proud legacies of the past, become subverted. This is ideological subversion. The same thing happened, of course, in the Soviet Union, in the Eastern Bloc countries of Eastern Europe. This happened in China, where our history was rewritten. They were demoralized. They were told essentially that they had no reason to be proud of their past, because the best way to demoralize a people, the best way to destabilize them, is to sever the link that connects them to their sense of national identity. And that's what we see here. And instead of that, what we're seeing new myths created, that Britain is the land of diversity, diversity built Britain. You have Sadiq Khan in London saying that immigrants built London, a great slur on all those generations of Londoners and British people who built St. Paul's Cathedral and, all the other great, the Tower of London and so forth. So that's what's at play here. So, of course, it's a very silly story on the surface, but deep down, this is extremely sinister because it goes to the very heart of who we are as a people by trying to undermine everything that we held dear. For example, Nelson has been completely denigrated and attacked here by the Welsh on the basis of one single letter he was alleged to have written in support of slavery to a friend of his in Jamaica. Well, the leading historians on Nelson, the leading biographer of Nelson, long ago proved that this was a forgery. This letter was forged by the anti-abolitionist movement, who after Nelson died, Nelson was becoming a great national hero. They wanted to get some of his charisma and some of his fame on their side for the pro-slavery side. And so this letter that he was alleged to have written was actually forged. But that, of course, is nowhere in these documents, and they're advising people not to use any buildings associated with him. And there's an entire village called Nelson that's also been unfairly maligned through all of this by the Welsh government.
It's just absolutely bonkers, and it is really dangerous. And what I want to know is, how have we allowed this to seep in? Well, it hasn't even seeped into society. It has been sort of rapidly forced upon us at an alarming rate. How has that even happened?
It's not been that much of an alarming rate. I mean, everything is getting apace now, but this has been in the works for decades. This is part of what we call the long march through the institutions. You know, after the fall of the Soviet, after the Russian Revolution, so the communists in the West wondered, why didn't this sort of thing happen in Britain, which was supposed to be an industrialized country? That's where these things were supposed to happen. And they realized actually that the working classes weren't naturally communist. They actually were small C patriots, people like the ones that voted for Boris Johnson in the Red Wall. And so the communists then looked to other minorities to become their foot soldiers in the quest to overturn the West. And so ethnic minorities, gays, the disabled, all of these would now become weaponized as basically the new proletariat for this cause. And the way that they were going to do this was by very slowly, over decades, moving the window of what was acceptable. So we've had this almost glacier-like move to the left over recent decades, whilst they put up the apparatus and structure of their new society all around us. But we see it with the decolonization of our curriculums. We see it, of course, through things like critical race theory, through gender ideology. These are all the ways in which they are destroying the structures and the edifice of our civilization. And it's a very long process. But now that they've got the structure in place and they've got the government in place and they've taken over our institutions, yes, things are quickening up very fast.
Oh, they are going great guns, aren't they? And I mean, look, I always said that, you know, if you were going to take God out of the equation, you better have something good to replace him with. And it turns out it's all these neo-religions that, frankly, are wreaking havoc, are tearing apart our cultural fabric and the glue that binds us together. Rafe, is fantastic having you on the programme. Let's get you back on soon to cheer us all up with the dystopian nature of our post-revolutionary Marxist society. He's a great man. He's from the New Culture Forum.